Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer from English with Jennifer. I've made some embarrassing mistakes in the past. Have you? Let me tell you about one. I was at a wedding. I knew the bride, but not the groom. I had only seen him from a distance. Well, I was walking along a path after the ceremony, and a man in a tuxedo was about to pass me. I was fairly certain it was the groom, so I thought I should say something. I said, "Congratulations." He said, "Thanks, but I'm not the groom." I was like, oops. Putting names with faces isn't my best skill, at least not outside the classroom. Sometimes we mistake one person for another. It happens. I know I'm not the first to do it. This is not all that different from mistaking one piece of grammar for another. Gerunds and present participles are both words that end in ing. We form them from verbs. Learn, learning. Love, loving. Run, running. So not all words that end in ing are gerunds, but gerunds behave like nouns. Take a look at some parts from my story again and tell me if the highlighted words are gerunds.
I've made some embarrassing mistakes in the past.
This isn't a gerund. This is a present participle functioning as an adjective. Some call it a participial adjective. What kind of mistakes? Embarrassing mistakes. ing adjectives have an active meaning. These mistakes cause embarrassment.
I was walking along a path after the ceremony.
This isn't a gerund. This is a present participle and it's part of a verb in the past progressive. It's an action in progress at a past point in time.
Putting names with faces isn't my best skill.
Putting is a gerund. I used a gerund phrase as the subject of my sentence. Putting names with faces isn't my best skill. How else can we use gerunds? What else might we mistake for a gerund? Do gerunds change forms? Let's find answers to these questions. We saw how a gerund or a gerund phrase can function as the subject. Take a look at these sentences. How are the gerunds being used? Do you enjoy meeting new people? Are you good at remembering names? Look back at number 1. Enjoy what? Enjoy meeting new people. The gerund phrase is the object of the verb. It's the direct object. In number 2, good at what? Good at something. The gerund phrase is the object of the preposition. 3. Jennifer's chosen topic, forgetting people's names, is one that other people might relate to. What was the chosen topic? Forgetting people's names. I'm using the gerund as an appositive. That's a noun or a noun phrase that redefines the subject. We often form appositives when we reduce adjective clauses. My father, a medical doctor, is now retired. What was the full adjective clause? My father, who was a medical doctor, is now retired. So a noun or noun phrase, or a gerund phrase can be an appositive. Do you remember how I said putting names with faces isn't my best skill? I can flip that around and say my best skill isn't putting names with faces. Remember that subject complements follow linking verbs. We have the subject, linking verb, in this case a form of be, and then the subject complement. It defines the subject. My best skill, what is it? Isn't putting names with faces. To summarize, a gerund or gerund phrase can be a subject, object, complement, or a positive. Try completing these sentences for practice. Share your ideas in the comments.
Do you want to know my honest answer to number 2? In the early morning hours, I enjoy sleeping in.
I also think that a major cause of stress is taking on too much and not finding enough time for ourselves. Would you agree? I just gave you an example of a negative gerund. Negative gerunds are simply not plus the gerund. Again, this gerund or gerund phrase can be a subject, object, complement, or a positive. How about a passive gerund? Do you remember the basic difference between active voice and passive voice? Passive verbs shift the focus to the person or thing that receives the action. The focus shifts away from the performer.
Watching small children is necessary. Watching other people is not always appropriate. For street artists and street performers, being watched is completely normal.
Do you like being told what to do? Are you ever afraid of being judged harshly? These are more examples of passive gerunds. Passive gerunds use being plus the past participle. Go ahead and practice using passive gerunds. Write complete answers to my questions. I can tell you that my son doesn't like being told what to do, especially behind the wheel. He's now 16, going on 17, and although he's doing a great job as a new driver, I still get nervous. He doesn't have his full license yet, so sometimes I become a backseat driver. I'm sitting in the front passenger seat, but I have a habit of reminding him to do this and that. I know it's annoying, but sometimes I can't help it. Yes, I'm admitting publicly that my backseat driving is annoying my teenage son. Okay, look at the sentence and tell me where the gerund is. Driving. Driving is the gerund. Backseat is acting as a noun modifier. What kind of driving? Backseat driving. Whose backseat driving? Mine. We can use possessive forms before a gerund. A possessive name or a possessive adjective. Since gerunds behave like nouns, we can use a possessive word before a gerund. Now something interesting happens in everyday English. Sometimes we use just a person's name, not with an apostrophe s, just the name, or an object pronoun in front of a gerund, and it has the same meaning. You're telling me what to do at every turn makes me nervous. You telling me what to do at every turn makes me nervous. In fact, the object pronoun sounds more natural to my ears in this example. What do you think neighbors might complain about? Can you finish my sentences with gerunds or gerund phrases?
Here are my ideas. The new neighbors are awful. Their partying drives me crazy. I really want to tell them that their dancing on the rooftop has got to stop. Let's pause for a moment and consider what it means to use a possessive adjective before a gerund. It means we can use other adjectives, other modifiers before gerunds. The neighbor's loud partying is a problem. Constant sneezing is typical of spring allergies. Slow dancing is very romantic. The hard part is done. The rest of the project should be smooth sailing. We've now seen a simple gerund that's negative, a passive gerund, and a so-called possessive gerund.
Having covered simple, passive, and possessive forms should fill you with more confidence. At least I hope so. You're ready to look at two final forms, past forms. Look at my subject. I used a very long subject with a perfect gerund. A perfect gerund is a past form of a gerund. We use having plus a past participle. For regular verbs, that's the ed form. For irregular verbs, it's the third form of the verb. We don't often need this form, but it's useful when we need to clarify that one action happened at an earlier past point in time. I said having covered simple, passive, and possessive forms should fill you with more confidence. In other words, we covered other forms of gerunds earlier, so now you should have more confidence. Guess what? A perfect gerund can also be passive.
My backseat driving is bothersome. I guess I appreciate having been told. I'll do it less.
Besides, he really is getting better, so he needs less direction. The passive form of a perfect or past gerund is having been plus the past participle. Having been told. Again, he told me earlier, so now I know what not to do. Can you finish these ideas?
Let me note one pattern. If the time sequence is clear, we can use the simple gerund. For example, my country takes pride in having put a man on the moon. I want to use the perfect gerund here because it makes a clear reference to the past. But look at this example. Having been taught to respect others at a young age made me the person I am today. I feel the time sequence is clear because we have two time markers, at a young age and today. So personally, I think it's fine to say, being taught to respect others at a young age made me the person I am today. And truthfully, we don't use perfect gerunds all that much in everyday spoken English.
Do you remember how I talked about mistaken identity at the beginning of the lesson? Well, here's a related challenge. Can you identify which sentence has a gerund? A. The parents appreciated having been warned about the strong currents, so they kept their children in the shallow water at the beach. And B. Having been warned about the strong currents, The parents kept their children in the shallow water at the beach. Let's consider these examples carefully.
Not all sources and not all teachers will agree with me, but I feel that sentence A has a gerund. Sentence A has a passive gerund in a past form functioning as the object of the verb, appreciated. Appreciated what? In my mind, sentence B has a participial phrase, an adverbial phrase, and it explains a reason. Why? I see a reduced adverb clause in sentence B. Because the parents had been warned about the strong current, they kept their children in the shallow water at the beach. There is debate about gerunds and participles. For example, following time words like after, before, and while, we can have ing forms. Some simply call those words ing forms. However, others like to label them as either gerunds or participles. I see arguments for both. If you consider after and before prepositions, then you can see gerunds in these examples. After swimming, we had lunch. Before heading to the beach, we put on sunblock. Preposition plus object. However, if you consider after and before as conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions left over from reduced adverb clauses of time, then you likely see them as participles. The full adverb clauses of time are: after we swam, we had lunch. Before we headed to the beach, we put on sunblock. Remember that while also helps us form adverb clauses of time that reduce to adverb phrases. So why isn't while listed as a preposition in the dictionary? It's only a conjunction. Why would two conjunctions transform into prepositions and a third wouldn't? While I was relaxing on the beach, I got a nice tan. While relaxing on the beach, I got a nice tan. I usually see all these examples with after, before, and while plus ing forms as adverb phrases, reduced from adverb clauses. But to be honest, I'd rather find a compromise than argue. Maybe we can just call them ing forms in those phrases. We can also talk about ing forms in these kinds of examples. Do you have trouble making small talk? Are you comfortable talking to people you just met? I definitely see those phrases as complements. The first is an object complement. The second is an adjective complement. I'd rather not argue whether they're gerunds or participles, so I'm willing to call them ing forms. That's probably less confusing.
If you'd like to learn more about reducing adverb clauses, you can watch my 4-part lesson on this topic. I'll put the link in the video description. Here's a final quiz. Let's test what you learned.
1. Which word is a gerund? 2. Which gerund is passive? 3. Which gerund is a past form? 4. Can you fix the mistake? 5. Can you fix the mistake?
We'll end here. I hope that looking at lots of examples was useful. Practicing grammar together makes it easier to learn, and I certainly hope that you feel more confident using gerunds now. Please like and share the video. As always, thanks for watching and happy studies.
Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Why not join me on Patreon? And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.